Welcome back. It is still Relationship Wednesday on Life and Style. And if you're like me, Monday was powerful. Pastor Chris, I was in class.
You're in class?
I took notes. I swear I took notes today. Like, I know what my resolution for next year is. 23 years of marriage. They work together.
What's your resolution for next year? You want to work together?
I'm telling you. I'll tell you in January. In January, I promise I'll tell you. But I learned something today. Yeah. I did. And you're also a very good example. And this 23 years of marriage, you work together. You have to see each other every day.
You know, they're breaking certain stereotypes because there are those people who believe a couple can't work together. If they work together, they won't stay together.
It gets boring.
Yeah, it gets boring.
Monotonous. You want to see the person. You want to hang out with them. They say, we are in the same car, we live in the same house, we're in the same office.
I loved the part of the transition is in the car.
Yeah. Okay, now we know we're going home.
Yeah.
I really love that. I learned a lot. So next year, you should ask me in January what my resolution is.
It's just next Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I'll be asking you what that is.
I'll tell you. What do you have on Nisamehe today?
Well, we have on Nisamehe a lady that was accused for having stolen.
Okay.
Yeah, she handled a fraud case in a bank, and so she was accused of that. She was jailed and got out of it, giving hope to the world now, going back into the prisons and helping everybody right over there.
That must be difficult.
Yes, it would be, but then you can see that my guest is so bright.
She is.
She doesn't look like she has gone through
totally
anything.
Like, if you had not told me, I would not have guessed. You look very nice, Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Teresa Njoroge is with us on Nisamehe today, talking about the story of her life. Welcome to Nisamehe and Life and Style.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm Teresa Njoroge. I'm a wife. I'm a mother of two, a daughter, a friend, and a sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were working at an institution, and then you handled a case that caused you to go to jail.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Talk about that.
So what happened is, as far as I can remember, I always wanted to be a banker. As young as 9 years old, I had already made that resolution, having drawn the inspiration from my father, who was a career banker for 3 decades. And watching him, it sat very well in my heart that I wanted to be just like him. And I put in all my effort to see to it that that dream comes to realization. And
So that was right from childhood. You were working towards being a banker.
Towards being a banker, just like my father.
Okay.
Yeah, and God was very gracious. I got scholarships, graduated with banking and finance, and when I got back, I did eventually land.
You didn't study here, did
yes. Yeah. So I again got fortunate. Got into the banking sector here in Kenya, worked with about 3 international banks, a career that I loved so much. But however, 7 years into it, I happened to handle a fraudulent transaction unknowingly.
Okay.
Yeah, and the worst that I thought would happen was to lose a career that I had loved for the longest time I could remember. That was very scary because...
Talk about that transaction.
Yeah.
You know.
It was a transaction that was worth 9.8 million Kenya shillings, and we paid it in 3 different transactions. Some amount was going out as cash, some was going out as a banker's check, and some was a swift transfer from the account holder to another account with another bank. And so what happened is the client had come from another branch to our branch to have that transaction effected. The transaction was effected over a period of 2 weeks, and we were glad because it was a transaction just like any other. 2 weeks later, the client went to their branch and said they had not done that transaction.
They didn't authorize it?
They didn't authorize it.
Okay. Was it in your place to find out whether that was authorized, or you were taking instructions? How was the operation of that?
I was in charge of the center that the client came to draw the cash from. And we were about 7 staff of us who formed the chain. through which this transaction would go through. So being part of that transaction, I was liable in the fact that I was one amongst the 7 people who handled the transaction.
Okay.
It was a very normal transaction, just like any other that we used to handle. So nothing was amiss. And when we were told a month later that we had paid out the cash to a wrong person, an imposter, for me, I really wanted to work with the investigating team to find out what went wrong and who dropped the ball.
Had you dealt with a case like that in your career, 7 years? Had you dealt with cases where there was fraud, then you detected or something, or this was your first case?
I had actually stopped a couple of them, and the holding branch was my branch, and stopped them. And I was aware that imposters do come and try to defraud the bank, defraud the account holders. So I knew very well what to check out for. And in this particular case, I thought I had done my best.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you had that, so then you wanted to be part of the investigation, but
Yes.
then you were not allowed. In any case, it turned against you.
Yes.
How was that for you?
It was such a blow for me because I had actually gotten a job with another international bank, and I was only 6 months into my new position in a senior management role with a new international bank. And 2 officers walked in and told me that they had come to see me in regards to that transaction. And I was very glad because I'd offer the help that they required to unearth what really went down, what went wrong. But turn of events, they told me they had actually come to arrest me in regards to that account because I had been handpicked to carry the cross for that transaction.
Did you feel that your change of jobs played a role in you carrying the cross?
I was an easy target. I no longer worked for that bank.
Yeah.
So I was an easy carrier of that cross.
So
Yeah.
it was easy to say this person could have done that and then they left.
True, true.
So you felt betrayed by the other people?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so, because during the preliminary investigations, I did my best to assist them get to the bottom of it. And when I got the new offer at the new bank, the management cleared me, paid all my dues, and wished me the very best in my new role. And for me, I wished that they would come, to understand what really happened in that particular transaction. And I knew the odds were against me, even if I stayed with them, given what had happened. So this was a blessing in disguise for me, and I took it.
When you were going, because you said you were prosecuted, you told me that before we got on set, that you were prosecuted.
Yeah.
When you were going to court, the fact that these people had cleared you and paid you your dues, that was not a factor?
It wasn't a factor. Actually, the arresting officers told me that they had come to the conclusion that I was the one who was going to carry the cross on for that particular transaction. And true to their word, out of all the 12 people who had handled this transaction in totality, I was the only one accused of that loss.
Did you know the person, the imposter? Was that person regular at your center?
No, it was the first time that he had come.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how was the court process for you? The emotions, the thoughts, the things you're dealing with. You have, were you married by then?
I had just gotten married.
You had just gotten married.
Yeah, yeah.
And the first thing your husband is dealing with is an accusation
Yes.
against the wife. How was that for you?
We really didn't know each other much, and that was our beginning, termination from my career, being in the newspapers and on TV as a bank thief. It was a very tough beginning for us. We didn't focus on us. We now had to focus on the case that we had, which took a lot of his time and a lot of his resources, because I didn't have anything to contribute
At least he knew you didn't have any of the millions
Yes,
with you.
yeah.
So in that, then he
very well.
trusted you, right?
Yeah, yeah. He did trust me.
Okay.
And he did trust that I didn't play any role in that particular transaction that led to the defrauding or the loss of that cash. And it really was a blow for us, because as much as he couldn't continue with work, since we were in court every 2 weeks, and we had to prepare ourselves during these 2 weeks with the help of lawyers to be sober enough to try and prove my innocence in this transaction. Yeah.
So apart from how it was putting a strain on you and your husband and financially, emotionally, how was that for you? Were there people that you had worked with who came in to adduce evidence against you?
Yes.
How did that feel, looking at colleagues standing on the other side and working the case against you?
Yeah. It was the highest level of betrayal deep down inside, that I had no wrongdoing. But because of procedure and the court process and the employer, they had to come and be part of the prosecution witnesses, and meeting them and saying hello, and minutes later they have to go on the other side as a prosecution witness against me, knowing the facts. It didn't add up. However, they didn't have any evidence whatsoever pointing fingers at me. Actually, they just stated exactly the procedures that we followed to pay out the cash.
So how did you then get yourself in jail? There was no evidence against you.
Yeah.
How did you get yourself in jail?
Yeah. So 2 years, 2 months, every 2 weeks we were in court. No evidence whatsoever that I stole the cash. I was up against 4 counts, 3 for theft and 1 for conspiring to defraud the bank. We were very upbeat since there was no evidence. We were very upbeat that, you know what, there has been no evidence whatsoever, so you'll definitely be cleared from this. My family was also regular in the courts to follow the proceedings, and a couple of friends, they were very regular in court, because we had to put concerted effort to fight for my innocence, since it affected all of us.
All right.
What was also part of this is that we were blessed with our firstborn daughter towards the last year of the prosecution. And by the time we were now waiting for the judgment, my daughter was only 3 months old. And we went for the judgment, and the 3 charges of theft were dropped, but the magistrate said that there could have been a probability that I conspired.
Okay.
And that's how I got sentenced and had to go to serve that 1-year sentence at Langata Women Maximum Prison with my daughter.
You had to go with your child in there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Talk about your experience in jail. You have, you've lost your job. This has been your dream job since you were growing up.
Yeah.
Your father had been your role model all these years, and you wanted to be like him, so you got that job. Then 7 years down the line, your career is being cut. You just newly married, and you're in this case. Then the worst is you've just gotten your first baby, and you're going to prison. Talk about your prison experience at that time.
Everything seemed not to make any sense. Life didn't make any sense whatsoever. The miscarriage of justice was the biggest blow that ever happened in my life. And as a new mother, it made the situation even worse. However, the turn of events was that, traumatizing as prison was for me, because it was such a shift from where I grew up, the environment, the language, the culture. Prison was the exact opposite. I had never even imagined of that kind of a lifestyle. And now bringing my daughter with me into this, there was a lot that wasn't adding up in my mind.
Why did you opt to bring your daughter in there? Wasn't there anybody who could have taken care of your daughter?
It was a very last-minute decision we made with my husband, because I had lost literally everything. And she was the only one who I could go with in there. And true to that decision, nursing her kept me alive.
Okay.
It kept my hope up.
All
There
right.
was going to be life after. Everything that I had worked so hard for had gone. My reputation, my name.
So
everything.
you found your motherhood to be a new focus.
Yes.
Some positive energy.
Yeah.
Over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long were you in prison?
A whole year.
1 whole year.
Yeah.
And it's a very crazy environment for you.
Yes.
What did you need to adapt to survive?
The culture, the language, the food.
Did your language change?
I had to understand the prison language. I had to adjust to the kinds of meals that they offered. I had to adjust to lack because there's no luxury in there. And as I adjusted to the new kind of life, that's when my inner voice started speaking something different to me. And I started realizing that I had so much. And as my appeal went on, my focus changed from me to the close to 700 women that I found there. And I listened to story after story of the women who were there. And it caught me that most of them had come from very poor backgrounds. They had never had the opportunity of education that I had. The dreams that I realized of going to good schools, being brought up by caring parents, being provided for my needs, and then getting into my career job as a banker, meeting all the needs that I had, I came to learn that there's a huge percentage of my sisters out there who never get that.
Who never get that.
Yeah.
So you started having an attitude adjustment.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah.
Because you had to keep yourself going.
Yes.
And decided to, they say if you receive the lemon, then you might as well
make lemonade out of it.
Yeah. So that's what you were doing in there.
Yeah.
And you began to see a purpose in your prison.
Yeah.
What did that birth out?
So it was very simple beginnings, just teaching them how to write their names. Most of them couldn't even write their names. Giving them options of decent legal means of livelihood that they could get into, as opposed to prostitution and grabbing other people's stuff. There was a cry of a way out. They were caught up in a revolving door of a life of abject poverty, which pushed them to survival crimes, hawking in non-designated selling areas, and then into imprisonment. And once they leave, they had no bus fare to even leave the prison gates. They had no food for that particular day. They had no house to go to. Their kids were all over. I could sense that cry for a decent means of livelihood, and that's what I spent my days trying to figure out with them.
Where was your baby? Is it a boy or a girl?
She's a baby girl. She's now 6 years old.
So where was your daughter all this while? You were spending so much time helping the other people who were in there.
Yeah.
What about your daughter?
Yeah. So my daughter was such a charm luck for me, because the prison authorities actually allowed me to spend the days taking care of her and the 50 other children who had accompanied their mothers to prison. So while most went out to do the various duties that are located in prison, I was left to take care of my daughter and the 50 other kids as well. And that gave me the opportunity to speak a different language to these children who only knew of the vulgar language that was used by their mothers, or the abuse they would hear around, the beating around. It gave me an opportunity to speak a different language to them and also see the needs of kids who grow up with so much lack, and then grew that opportunity to speak to my friends, to churches, while I was still in there, on what they could bring to change the situation.
Were you ever a target in prison? Did some people feel that you were from the privileged side of life, so they would find you to be a target, because some of the people who go into prison, they're angry already. You're talking about, you know, the vulgar language of the mothers.
Yeah.
And some of them, it's because they are angry.
Yeah.
They're angry with themselves, angry with everybody around them, angry with life, so they pass on that anger to the children.
Yeah.
So here comes this lady who seems to have had a lot of privileges in her life, and she comes in, she's even being allowed to take care of children.
Yeah.
Why are you facing that resentment in prison by people who felt you were too privileged?
Because when I went in, I had fear of how I'd protect myself and my kid if anyone attacked me or anything like that. Because of that fear, I had already really tried to disarm them by being the politest I could, the kindest I could, and just show the best intentions and motives that I had, because I honestly did not know how I'd protect myself in there. And with time, they got to see my intentions. I didn't mean any harm. If anything, I wanted the best for each and every one of us in there.
Okay.
And I think that brought down that. So I didn't get any of that.
All right.
Yeah.
From your prison experience, you began an organization.
Yes.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah. So from the first-hand experience of the miscarriage of justice and getting to learn the issues that we have in our prisons, I got into another huge challenge when I left prison, and that was the stigmatization. And, you know, I came to learn that it's such a grueling journey reintegrating back into society once you have that tag of an ex-convict. All this put together pushed me to set up Clean Start, which is a social enterprise that now works to inspire people who find themselves not finding justice, whether it's through legal representation or through a miscarriage of justice or just lack of social and economic justice. And then we also empower and equip people who are behind bars and also those reintegrating back into society with means and ways of having a fresh start to the second chance.
So are you based anywhere?
Yes.
Where are you based? How can somebody reach you?
Yeah. So we have an office at Koinange Street at Trust Mansion House, second floor. I also have a little office back at home in Kiambu. And other than those physical addresses, we are also on social media at Clean Start. A lot of people do get to us through the social media pages, Clean Start, or on Twitter at Clean Start Kenya, or even on my personal Facebook page, Teresa Njoroge.
Okay.
Yeah, and we get in touch with them.
Did you deal with the pain of betrayal? Did you let go? Did you forgive the people that you felt had betrayed you?
The pain of betrayal hit me so hard post-prison when I came to learn that as much as I got cleared of any wrongdoing by the Court of Appeal, I could never get my job back. That's when the pain hit me, that was done. But as I got very busy with building Clean Start and working with the women, the purpose became so much bigger than myself, such that it swallowed me and I could no longer just focus on myself, and it somehow washed away that pain of betrayal.
So if somebody's dealing with such a kind of a thing, you know, they've gone through that kind of betrayal, coming out, they can't start. I know you do that with Clean Start. What do you tell them in 1 minute as we wind up?
To keep hope alive. Hope is the one very thing that can take you as far when everything else has failed. Hope is what kept me going, tough as things were. And I have seen that hope is what keeps the women and men that we work with keep going, tough as things may be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had it. You keep hope alive. My takeaway would be that you find something that will consume you till it buries your pain. That has been Teresa Njoroge's story on Nisamehe. Find her on the social media platforms, Clean Start. We take a break. We get back to Style My Wife, Style My Hubby with Crystal Okusa. Don't go away.